In my last video, I looked at what the average pensioner receives. I also mentioned in a coming video, I would show you how much you need invested to generate an extra £10,000 a year. But before we can answer that question, there's something far more important that most people skip. Most people know roughly what they earn. Many know what's left in the bank at the end of the month, but surprisingly, few know what they actually spend things on. We often drift through life paying bills as they arrive, buying what we need, buying what we want, and then hoping there's some left over. That's not a plan. It's simply reacting. Retirement isn't based on how much you earn today. It's based on how much you spend tomorrow. If you don't know that number, you're trying to build a bridge without knowing how wide the river is. Now, I know budgeting isn't exciting. It can feel tedious and many people avoid it because they'd rather not look too closely. This apathy causes problems. But by spending a couple of hours understanding your finances could save years of uncertainty later. Knowledge really is power. So what I'm going to do now is put some figures into so we can visualize a budget and what I'm talking about. This will be loosely based on our spends for the two of us. Because we're focusing on retirement, we're going to make the assumption that there's no mortgage or rent to pay. Now, these figures are roughly based on what I've seen in the last 12 months, and it's probably not going to include all expenditure, but I've put some flexibility in, so you'll see that in some of the figures. For instance, for the maintenance, I've just used £100 for some of the things that may need some maintenance. So the household bills costs about £7,000 a year. Onto the living costs, I've estimated about £150 a week on food, and I've given myself a takeaway a week. For work, this could easily be doubled because there's two of us, but likewise, we could easily take food in, so not necessarily need to be as much as I've shown. And that's where some of the budget has flexibility for those reasons. For instance, the fees are just miscellaneous. Likewise, clothes and shoes is just a modest figure as a placeholder. So the general living costs is about 12,500. With the vehicle costs, we've actually got two cars. So in retirement, we'd more than likely only have the single car. So these costs could be reduced quite significantly. And like the mortgage, I'm assuming you own outright the car. But with cars going electric, all these figures could be meaningless. I've also only put £500 for maintenance, but there'll be additional things such as tyres. As a rough estimate, £5,500 for vehicle costs I think is reasonable. Now we enter the leisure expenditure. A lot of this will be subjective and different people will have different needs and things that they do. So I've just put estimates of what could spend, not necessarily what I have spent. For example, I have read that the average spends on a holiday could be about 4,000. And I'm assuming that when you retire, you'll probably go on holiday more often. So I do think that this is like a reasonable costing for two people, especially thinking that you can go away during midweeks and it'll be a lot cheaper anyway. I've thrown in some extra one-offs to create a bit of a buffer for the spending. Likewise, under miscellaneous, I've put Amazon, £2,400. That may well exceed what people spend, but it also gives you that buffer. So overall, the leisure costs are about £10,000. So if we add it all up, we've got the household bills of 7,000, living expenses of about 12,500, vehicle costs of 5,500, and about £10,000 of leisure costs. Overall, we're looking at about £35,000 expenditure. If I was wanting to maintain the current lifestyle I have now, I would need about £35,000 income a year. For each individual, the full state pension is approximately 12,500. So that takes care of 25 of the 35,000. That leaves me with an additional £10,000 to find. But don't forget that that may also need to include tax. So now we've established the £10,000 baseline that's required. I can now work out how much I need to generate that money. So how much money would I need to reliably generate the extra £10,000 a year? That's basically what I'm going to introduce in the next video. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you on the next video.